meet, son.
Those of us who have played and fallen in love with From Software's gothic masterpiece Bloodborne have all come to understand one single collective truth: that we want more Bloodborne, and apparently we just can't have it. Seemingly though, not a day goes by without a new rumour on the tip of somebody's tongue, whether that's a Bloodborne remake, a simple remaster to finally fix the game's frame rate, or heaven forbid, a fully fledged sequel, none of which seem deigned to ever come to pass, and so, we Bloodborne fans continue to wait. Bloodborne, after all, was one of those seminal games, the after effects of which will continue to be felt trickling down generation after generation. Imitators will invariably come and go. In fact, I'm currently finishing up the recently released Thymesia for review on the channel, a game that is unabashedly borrowing from that which came before, perhaps a little too much so. But regardless, we'll all still be waiting for a fresh new reason to return to the blood-soaked streets of Yharnam nonetheless. Lies of P, despite the somewhat inelegant name, looks like it could be the next best thing to From's very own. Developer NeoWiz's new title, set for a 2023 release, is doing everything it can to carve out its own niche in a very busy subgenre. In fact, it could be the Souls-like spiritual successor that finally gets it. Initially revealed over a year ago, Lies of P quickly introduced us to a compelling new world, a haunting, sinister twist on the tale of Pinocchio, as our hero seeks to salvage the city of Krat from a cavalcade of cloying puppets. Initial comparisons to Bloodborne were obvious, from the Souls-style action RPG gameplay which pits you against towering, menacing, often lightning-fast and animalistic foes relentless in their pursuit of destroying you, to the bleak, dour and yet beautiful setting. A mesmerising backdrop of exquisitely designed, ruinous Baroque architecture, leaving behind the vampiric overtones of a dusky Victorian London for the slightly more romantic streets of a desecrated Paris within the Belle Epoque era. After a lengthy absence, Lies of P has since re-emerged just yesterday as part of Gamescom's opening night live show. While I'm considering talking about the show in general in greater detail, I wanted to highlight Lies of P in particular as my standout game from the showcase. Bloodborne fans rejoice. Our time could be nigh. So let's talk about the show that NeoWiz is putting on first. It seems to answer the age-old question of what if you could play Bloodborne, but as the plain doll instead. Lies of P is a dramatic retelling of the ancient story of Pinocchio, and from the trailers, that seems a perfect fit for the world NeoWiz is trying to depict. Monstrous, malformed puppets twitch and convulse in unholy bursts. Oil-soaked rats spill out of the mouths of corpses, and the city of Krat crumbles around you beneath the snowfall. The cast of characters seems to be all here, from Pinocchio's creator and father figure Geppetto to his ever-present conscience Jiminy Cricket, now in lantern form. Then there's Pinocchio himself, slightly less wooden boy, slightly more adolescent shonen anime hero, but he's pulling off the Yharnam noble look all the same. An incredible range of environments have already been shown off, from labyrinthine ornate mansions to whirring mannequin factories and waterlogged alleyway streets, and even the faintest glimpse of what appears to be a forest on the outskirts of the city itself. A gargantuan abomination explodes through the gates of a rickety old carnival, and what actual bits of gameplay we get show Pinocchio doing battle against a tempest of thrashing rain and lightning to really set the mood as he goes metal to metal against a bounding marionette dog. And it's only when the dog enemies are truly annoying that this can really become a true Souls-like. The developers are wearing their inspiration on their sleeve here, and the presentation and art design are all the stronger for it. Let's return briefly to my Thymesia comparison from earlier. A solid game in its own right, but it honours Bloodborne so obviously that it comes at the expense of any real identity of its own. That Lies of P seems able to harken back to that title that clearly inspired it, while retaining its sense of self, is truly both impressive and exciting. And the developers understand that atmosphere is key, and from what we've seen, Lies of P is thick with it. Enemy design looks terrific, with shuddering, quivering terrors shifting in and out of the glow of street lamps. An atmosphere clings to this game like creeping mist across cobblestones, and it oozes from every pore of the surprisingly high-budget feel. People adore the Soulsborne series for their gameplay, yes, but it's more than just that. That's just one tiny facet of a behemoth of a series built on the back of an intermingling set of winning factors. Gameplay is just a mere fraction of it. The worlds that are built in those games are designed to be lost in, to be absorbed in. To want to truly honour the Soulsborne legacy is to paint an everlasting portrait with your world, and Lies of P seems to be trying to do just that, so far at least. But of course, at the same time, gameplay is crucial, and it's here that we're able to glean a little less. What we do know, however, is it looks fast, aggressive, and overbearing in the best way possible. Cramped corridors and hallways quickly become death traps when faced with a gangly spider-like creature that takes up the majority of the screen in front of you. Yet you're never helpless, as is key in these games. Battle is what you make of it. Pinocchio is seen wielding multiple weapons throughout the trailers, from a classic saber or an aristocratic rapier, to a fire axe, to something much bigger, much heavier, and much nastier, as well as performing counterattacks against particularly violent foes. Players can complement their offensive with what looks to be adjustable prosthetics. Do I detect a hint of Sekiro in this game as well? That allow Pinocchio to refit his spare arm with a cannon, a flamethrower, and even what looks to be some kind of a grapple wire. So gameplay looks promising, at least from the perspective of combat, but only time will tell if NeoWiz was able to pack their world with as many secrets and shortcuts as the Souls games that make exploration just as much of a joy, if not more so, than combat itself. It's not all rosy, however. Some of the animations look a little wooden, and I don't mean in the way that works for a game about puppets. Meanwhile, the HUD also has something of an outdated feel to it and seems to lack any real flourish to call its own. But of course, this is all for a game that's still very much a work in progress. In the discussion of whether or not Lies of P can rise to the challenge of being a suitable spiritual successor to Bloodborne, however, there's one absolutely key component that we've yet to discuss. For as dark, gruesome, and depraved a game as Bloodborne is, there is more to it than that. There's a strange beauty to the game as well. Just as the scholars within Yharnam reached literally for the twinkling stars above, so too does the game. Bloodborne is more than just a gothic Transylvanian experience that looks to take itself incredibly seriously from the outside. It's also, however, highly flamboyant and theatrical in its presentation. The game isn't meant to simply horrify. It does everything with a flash of style and the crack of a whip. Orchestral music blares and crescendos in triumph with each boss fight, reminding you that it isn't just a game about darkness and brutality. It's a chaotic dance, and a magical one at that. Lies of P seems to get that, at least on the surface. The sheer nature of the reimagining of Pinocchio lends the game a real sense of identity and flair, and affords it that theatricality and flamboyance that takes Bloodborne's presentation to the next level. Whether the game can maintain that or not throughout its entire runtime is something we'll have to wait to find out. So I'm very excited to see more from Lies of P and eventually get my hands on the game come 2023, where it's releasing on virtually all platforms, including day one on Game Pass. In a sea of Souls-likes, it's borrowing heavily from the best of the best, but crucially seems to understand what it means to do so. A sodden, broken city of Krat with ravenous crows circling overhead and abhorrent enemies shuffling through the thickening darkness indicate the perfect atmosphere, and the game looks extremely enticing with promising gameplay to boot. In the trailer, Pinocchio is woken by a strange voice which sets him upon his journey, and I'm ready to follow him on his quest for humanity. So let's see where it takes us. That's it for the video, guys. I really hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what you think of Lies of P, especially if you've played Bloodborne. How do you feel it compares to that game based on what little we've seen? Make sure to hit subscribe if you enjoyed the video and you want to see more like this from the channel. I really would appreciate it, and a massive thank you goes out to everybody for getting the channel to 3,000 subscribers already. That's an amazing milestone, and if you like what you see here, then make sure to hit subscribe and give the video a like to support me and the channel. I really would appreciate it. But guys, that's it. Until next time, I'll catch you later, and I'll see you then.